The categories that we are proposing are in a series of areas. First is we are proposing to discontinue 4 lines. These 4 lines are, and you have some of this, do you have that information before them?
No, we'll get it.
Why don't we get it now, just because it gets a little confusing. That are being proposed to be eliminated due to low ridership. Our criterion is, do they have less than 15 boarding rides per vehicle hour? And there are 4 of those that do, generally speaking, with alternative service, though not completely on at least some of those lines, but 4 of those. And we'll list them, but you will see it here in a moment. The number 27, Market, Maine; 65, Market, Barber Boulevard; 154, Willamette; and 157, Happy Valley. There are 3 lines, in addition to those 4, that are being proposed to have some or all of the weekend service eliminated due to low ridership. Again, there are 32 Oatfield Saturday service is being proposed to be eliminated. They does not have Sunday service. The 45 Garden Home would propose to eliminate a Sunday service. There still is Saturday service, and it is utilized. And the number 80 Kane Troutdale eliminating both Saturday and Sunday service in that regard. The vast majority, though, of the savings we're proposing are really coming by minor reductions or changes in schedule. First, we're looking at a number of bus lines, 24 in fact, that will change the frequency by 2 to 3 minutes during non-rush hours, and by 2 to 10 minutes in the evenings or on weekends. There will also be 13 lines where we are making changes even during the rush hour, because we've looked at the capacity, the demand, and so on. But again, during those hours, 2 to 3 minutes during non-rush hour during the day, and at least on 13 lines, 2 to 3 minutes during rush hour. Some additional level of change in the later hours and on weekends. Also, we are proposing on 11 lines to change the frequency from 2 to 10 minutes throughout various times during the service day. Those are ones where we've had lower ridership and are seeing that. Next, we have looked at the weekend schedule and are really seeing a number of lines where we would increase the headway, that is the level of frequency, up to 6 minutes, and to be on weekends instead of if it's been running at half hour. There have been a number of places where we've proposed to change that to 60 minutes in fact, on one line on the lines 58 on Sundays. We've also looked at eliminating select trips during the weekday where a capacity is available, and there are 6 bus lines where you can just take a trip out and respace the time as a way to be able to still meet the capacity needs, but to be able to run what would be a little less frequency. The one area that we've been very, very careful on, although it's hard to be able to justify when we're having to do service cuts, and that is when we see a first trip of the morning or the last trip at night, very lightly used. You tend to look at those early on and ask, can they be eliminated? For us, it's a very key issue if it becomes, though, something that is the lifeline. That is, it's the only way somebody can get to work or from work. And we actually, on those settings, have been out on the bus lines talking to the actual riders on those lines to be sure whether or not they had alternatives, or was it a discretionary trip? How did that work? And then lastly, we looked at certain areas on the bus side where we would eliminate a portion of the trip, a loop that was really an add-on to certain trips that in 4 different bus lines that have had low ridership, we would be proposing to take out not the route, but the actual extra loop that was there. On the MAX service side, we have also looked at a adjusting frequency from 15 minutes to every 17 minutes in the off-peak hours. That's the early morning and late evening schedules would be adjusted by up to 4 minutes. That is, when we're in a half-hour time frame, that is headway in the very early morning hours or late at night, some on weekends. That would move from 30 minutes to 34 minutes. When it is a 15-minute service, it would move from 15 to 17 minutes. Again, not significant. We again look at capacity in each of these. Are we in fact still being able to have loadings that can be managed? And then lastly, although we did not do so last year, September of '09, we are proposing a 5% or 5 cent, pardon me, 5 cent fare increase for this coming September. We do that historically, as you well know, many years, not quite all. We did not in 2009, but would as a way to be able to address general inflationary pressures that we face. Obviously, it helps us offset some of those costs. Our process, and Mr. President, you addressed this in part, but I wanted to be able to do so a little bit more extensively. We begin with a series of open houses, and again, some of you as board members last time did. This is a chance for people to come in and just get information, talk to TriMet staff, ask about what the implication really is for them. Are there alternatives? It's also an opportunity for our staff to learn about specific needs of specific riders, and are there any ways we can address it. The public comment period actually begins today and will go through April 23rd. We will then proceed to be able to have, when is the public hearing, when are the public hearings?
In May, April, early April.
Early April. And so before that, the public comments all the way through that early April public hearing, and then ultimately any written comments by April 23rd for us to be able to adjust. I would add, although it is not a part of the specifics here, we are making some adjustments. By the way, these adjustments would come in what we call our fall sign-up. That would be the one that begins right around Labor Day, would be the time that that would be in place. We are making some adjustments in June, principally based on just where changes have occurred because of lower ridership. For example, probably the best example is the number 72. That's the one that goes along 82nd Avenue. We have seen that many of our riders who have typically been on that, by the way, that's been one of our heaviest used, in fact, the heaviest used line until relatively recently. But with the opening of the Green Line, people have, in fact, migrating toward the Green Line off of the 72, thereby allowing us to make some adjustments there. We are making other adjustments beyond that in the June period. Obviously, it's a very tough setting we're all facing, one that we wish we didn't have to face, but as you can tell, economically, it is something that is necessary because obviously we must have a balanced budget. Lastly, I might say that, as you, Mr. President, noted, across the country, there are every transit property is facing the same sorts of things. If you look at Chicago, they've just laid off a bit over 1,000 employees, are looking at reducing service by about 18%. That's much deeper than we are. And they, at least at this stage, no fare increase. That obviously is going to be wrestled with. Los Angeles Metropolitan Transit System is looking at a 25-cent fare increase. Ours is a nickel, but it gives you some sense of that. Washington, D.C. looking at a 10-cent fare increase, as well as service cuts. Even New York MTA, the largest of the systems, is looking at a fare increase as well. And then I might note that in Boston, likewise, they're doing. This is something that's going on across the nation. Those are some specific examples of where it's happening. With that, I'd be happy to be able to answer any questions, but as indicated, this is at that beginning stage of the process.